Mars has moved into a square, an exact square with Saturn. Mars is at the 23rd degree of Taurus and Saturn at the 23rd degree of Aquarius. And we remember that Mars recently was in conjunction to Uranus and the North Node. So Mars is quite energized at the moment by Uranus, having passed through the exact conjunction with Uranus very recently. It is still in conjunction with Uranus, a bit wider of course, and that gives it this electrical energy. It's quite energized. And here it comes against Saturn by square, and that's really going to make a difference. It's a combination which does not lead you to think of Mars being happy, happy to feel excited and ready to go. Mars now comes across Saturn that's just saying, wait a minute, are you sure? And this Saturn-Mars combination is tight, is taut, it's tense. There's this sense of trying to drive along with the brakes on and trying to overcome resistance, having been resisted. There's a fight going on. You're carrying a burden, really, with Saturn and Mars in aspect. And it's a square aspect, so neither is budging much. They're both very stubborn, Aquarius and Taurus, stubborn, fixed signs. And Mars in Taurus, it doesn't really like stopping. When it's going, it doesn't like stopping. It's a bit like a steamroller, one of those big machines that flattens the road when you're building stuff, and very hard to get going. Such a powerful, heavy thing. And Taurus does that to Mars. It kind of makes it slow and heavy and very difficult to get going, but when it is going, almost impossible to stop. So that's the kind of Mars we're talking about in Taurus, and it's just gone through this connection with Uranus and the node, and it comes up against Saturn. I've repeated that just to make the point, and Saturn's not having it. There's a lot of tension here. This is a time to be very careful about what you're doing with your Mars energy. But Mars is in the 23rd degree of Taurus, the jewelry shop, improving upon nature. Our life path moves us irrevocably, though circuitously, towards greater and greater demonstrations of personal excellence. This arises through the twin processes of becoming increasingly aware of our given potential and the refining of that raw material into even more impressive, shining facets. So Mars's job at the moment is to work as a jeweler in refining rough stone and turning it into something bright and shiny. And that rough stone is our personality. And it's been given recently a vision of how that could be, because it's just connected with Uranus, and it's still connecting with Uranus. So Mars has this sense of wonder, almost like, I wonder, could I be more so? Can I refine myself further and develop a greater sense of capacity and better qualities of being, shining my personality? Mars is on a mission here, and in Taurus it's going to get this done. So Mars is trying to craft the personality and improve upon nature. And Saturn's in the game of controlling a bear's emotion. You remember the bear that's sitting down and waving all its paws, the discipline of self-control. We studied this more recently. And to control the animal nature, there's a sense of self-discipline. So we have a sense of Mars wanting things to change and to become more expressive of a greater excellence of being in myself, self-expression. And Saturn is saying, whoa, calm yourself down. We don't want too much expression. You know, the bear is sitting down, just waving its paws, as opposed to running at you angrily. And it's not really wanting more self-expression, Saturn. And Mars does exactly that. It wants more self-expression. So we've got this huge amount of tension for a few days. This is maybe a week or so, when Mars and Saturn just are not seeing eye to eye. And yet, one of the things about a square is that it forces resolution. It is friction, and you have to overcome friction in order to move forward. It's equally true to say, however, that you can't move forward without friction. You can't climb up an icy hill. There's no grip. So we need squares to give us friction. And the tighter the square, and the more serious, like this one, is a very, very serious square, and it's exact when I speak today. You know, it's a big deal that we're trying to overcome here. There's a major challenge, and it has to do with understanding the balance within ourselves of two things. On the one hand, we have to contain our emotionality. We're not supposed to be ferocious bears expressing our animal nature without discipline. That's not what works in civilization. It doesn't. We come to grief. So we all make this social compact of containing our animal nature. Saturn in the 23rd degree of Aquarius. And yet, Taurus, Mars, is saying, you can't keep a good man down, you know. I want more. There is more here, and I can refine my animal nature. So there we have the link. It's the animal nature in the bear that's being refined by Taurus in the jewelry shop image. So we're polishing aspects of our personality now. And we know which aspects we're polishing. It's the passionate, bear-like, powerful side of us, that which, if we actually lost it, we would be frightening to people. That side of us is what Mars is trying to polish, because it wants the power of the animal within, and yet it doesn't want that to be ugly or harmful. And that's the task at hand now, for us to try to, first of all, identify those passionate energies which perhaps have been repressed long term by the forces of civilization, in order for us not to be too much trouble to deal with, and for there to be a society, a civilized society. However, if you suppress that too much, if that's repressed, it just blurts out in an uncontained way, uncontrolled way. And that's potentially very damaging indeed to yourself, to people around you, to the status quo. Everything is threatened by that. And yet, if we don't allow that out, the volcanic explosion of it is more likely than the measured expression of it. And that's basically what Saturn is saying to us in Aquarius 23. Now, when Taurus is trying to polish this diamond, it's already shining. It's already not a dull stone, but a bright diamond. In other words, the personality that we have is not neutral or grey. It's already colourful and unique, but it could be more so. And it could be more so if we allow more of our passions to come out, provided it's done carefully. So there's the bottom line, really. Be very careful in polishing your sort of personality, having allowed some passion to express, which is normally dormant. So a potentially troubled time in terms of interaction with other people. You might think that kind of authority figures would would have a bit of a power tussle. You know, if you're in a position of authority, somebody's going to challenge you. The young warrior is going to come up and see how strong you are in your authority, and you mustn't lose your temper. You know, you contain your temper. That's one example. Another example is where you are trying to hold things down, but actually it's time for a change. It's time to let the wild energy out a little bit. You know, you're going to have to play this one, but something like that's happening and it's not comfortable. It's potentially violent as well. So I had a look at the various horoscopes of certain countries just to see whether this tight aspect between Mars and Saturn was relevant to their particular horoscopes. And it's a little bit shocking. We have Ukraine, whose Saturn is at 22 Taurus. So, playing right into this. You have Russia, going back to their original incorporation in 862. That's the chart I'm using. Chiron at 24 Leo, wide conjunction of Mars. Neptune at 21 Aquarius. UK, Saturn at 23 Leo. And the European Union has Mars and Pluto at 24 Scorpio. Now, you think about that. That's major tension, including Pluto, including Mars, including Saturns, of these various players who are in the news at the moment. And it's more to do with Russia and Ukraine and the European Union than, for example, NATO. NATO's got nothing particular in the game here. But we're going to have something going on that's Saturn-like. Some either attempts to structure and contain Big Bear, that Russia has always been known as the bear, hasn't it? So it's too big a metaphor, it's a sort of coincidence, shall we call it, to ignore. There's something going on here where Russia's attempt to control itself is impacting upon the other players, UK, Ukraine, European Union. These are all agencies which have an interest in getting Russia to do that. And Saturn does hint more at economic power and structured controlling things like that, whereas there is Mars and Pluto also in the equation. So we've got a very tense political time that presumably will show some escalation during this 1 or 2 week period, I would guess. Who knows? Let's have a look.